Hi, my name is Mark Bernard. I'm a monetary economist. In this video, I want to talk about the ruler of Russia and the president of Ukraine in a conceptual framework that I hope will shed some light on the future of these two countries. Now, in this channel, I usually don't talk too much about the news because news is really like information and it's the lowest form of knowledge. What I like to do is talk about abstract theoretical concepts to give you a conceptual framework in which you can subsequently hang facts and data and maybe even have some predictive value. And in this framework, I'm going to use Neo-Platonic thinking and apply it to the leader of Russia, the Tsar of Russia, and the president of Ukraine. And within the context of that conceptual framework, I will conclude with some predictive values. Now, the reason I'm using Plato is Plato's fairly eternal. It's really Plato and really Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas. And maybe in a modern day sense, Mortimer J. Adler, he writes these great books of the world. So Plato's concept was that there are values which we act on and values which we judge on. The values which we act on are societal values. They are freedom, justice, and equality. Justice being the ultimate good, the sine qua non, because you can never have too much justice. And freedom, it's a limited good, because you don't want to yell, fire in a crowded movie house. You don't want to have too much freedom because society gets out of control. And similarly, equality. Society as a whole, we should be acting on the idea of justice. And of course, if you want peace, work for justice. Now, the values which we judge on are the individual values of beauty, truth, and goodness. Goodness, you would think, is the ultimate good, but it's actually truth. Beauty is something that gives pleasure to the eye without wanting to be consumed, like a piece of art. Whereas goodness is judgmental based on moral values. Truth is actually the ultimate good, Plato says, because it's the foundation in which we can give guidance towards truth. Now, how does this relate to Ukraine and Russia? Well, the leader of the Tsar of Russia is acting on some societal values which are incongruent with justice. He jettisons these. Obviously, he doesn't care about freedom, equality, or justice. He just cares about something else. He's acting on appetitive natures. Plato said there are three types of humans. The highest human was gold in pursuit of truth. And when you pursue truth as a leader, ultimately you will be going towards justice and bringing in a just society. You are thinking about these abstract ideals. When you're pursuing silver, you're going for glory. And that would be an example of an Olympic runner or Special Olympics or somebody who's like an amputee and striving to overcome challenges. You're making sacrifice and suffering for yourselves in order to do something greater. Now, most people, he would say, are appetitive or copper, pursuing appetitive natures, whether it be, let's say, lust or appetites or greed. And a ruler ruled by their appetites are the lowest form of rulers because they're just going for pleasure or self-fulfillment. There's an argument that the Tsar of Russia is going for glory or silver. He's certainly not gold because he's not going for justice. A silver leader would be going for silver if he was making self-sacrifices, like the pain of an endurance runner training for the Olympics. Or you could make an argument he was going for the glory of Russia. But this is not true because he himself surrounds himself by a cushy life, an embodiment of somebody who is going for pleasure. Now, if you're going for pleasure and you're copper, probably the best strategy is to be an Epicurean, where you're being a frugal life and limiting your pleasures so you don't hit diminishing marginal returns and being satiated by excess pleasures of the same. But he surrounds himself by earthly pleasures. He's definitely not silver in going for glory, as I've said, because he's not making self-sacrifice. He's living a cushy life. He's not going for gold because he's not striving for real truth and the truths that are eternal. And ultimately, this would, as a philosopher king, lead him to justice and a just society. And a just society strives for peace and striving for making humanity better. So we can conclude that the Tsar of Russia is an appetitive, weak, copper person. And I'll get back to what that means for the future of humanity and the world and for Russia. Now I'd like to talk about the president of Ukraine. He's certainly not going for his own pleasures because he's on the front line, he's suffering greatly, and his own personal life is pretty stressful. And proof of the pudding is, evidence to that is he could have taken a ride to London at the beginning in 2022, but he didn't. He stayed. He's probably not going for silver because that's just not his nature. He's a pretty down-to-earth person if you read anything about him and his history. He's really, like me, he'd probably prefer to fly beneath the radar. Now, he's probably going for a just society, the philosopher king in one sense, the president, because he really does care about the people that he rules over in a democratic, free, transparent sense. So what does this mean? In history, those like the Tsar of Russia who have ever attempted to rule a country bring shame to the country, like if it's Germany in the 40s, unfortunately, or Nero, or whatever country it is. It brings destruction, fall, decline, and shame to that person and the country. In the past, the great rulers who have strived for goodness, justice, whether it's like Abraham Lincoln, for example, brings glory to the country, brings justice and peace and prosperity to the nation. So from this, we can conclude Ukraine, because of the leadership, is on a trajectory of bringing a better future, creating a better humanity, and contributing to the world, why the country of Russia will probably go down in shame, and the people who do not vocalize and take action to bring a juster Russia will be on the wrong side of history. And I would expect, like in the Platonic sense, ignorance is probably one of the worst things. That's why we strive for truth, because an ignorant person would not put their hand over a flame if they knew they were going to get burned. If the ruler of, let's say, Germany in the 40s saw how much shame he would bring to the country and how it would burn into ashes, and he himself, were his eternal monument, even in the humanistic sense on this earth, or the eternal sense, if you believe in the divine, would result in punishment, perhaps, or at least a separation from the divine, would not pursue that course, just like in the Platonic sense, you wouldn't put your hand over a flame. So that means that ignorance is perhaps the ultimate bad in the Platonic sense, where the strive for truth is the ultimate good. So what we're saying here is the Tsar of Russia is not striving for any of that. And the end game is, and it will happen sooner than you think, it will parallel what happened to Germany in the 1940s. Maybe not ending at the capital, but it will definitely bring a dishonor and not move Russia to a better place. But humanity as a whole will continue to rise, and we will make the planet a better place. So that's my conceptual framework, in which I like to compare the two leaders of the president of Ukraine and the Tsar of Russia, and how I envision the future. My name is Mark Bernard. I'm reporting from Zakshubik. This is an old query, I'm a little bit cold, as you can tell. I'm shivering. It's because it's fall. I was doing some cliff diving. And what can I say? It's pretty cold here in Poland now. And I've been swimming in that water for a while. But that's why I don't know if you can see. But this is Zakshubik. It's a old quarry. It's still in the city limits of Krakow. It's beautiful. My name is Mark Biernot. I'm a monetary economist. Have a great day. Thank you very much.